concluding raising. We have seen that raising verbs and raising adjectives share the following properties. For example, raising only applies to the noun phrase which is subject of non-finite clause, and there is a gap after a verb, raising verb or raising adjective, which cannot be filled by a lexical NP. We cannot put a lexical NP, any word that can serve as the subject of that verb or adjective or that non-finite clause. For example, they seem to have left. So we know that before to we have they, because it is they who have left. So, or we may have the sentence they are likely to have left, or we can also say a passive, they are said to have left. But we cannot fill this gap before to have left, before to of have left with any noun. For example, they seem the children to have left. It will be an incorrect. Or they are likely, it will the children to have left. It is not possible. We cannot have a noun, a subject, a lexical word before to plus verb. The gap is bound by the subject noun phrase of the main clause, because the subject of that infinitive is the subject of the main clause. There is usually a paraphrasing with a finite clause or extraposition. For example, we can say it seems that they have left. So that they have left is a finite clause, and we have we can also use it seems it as a extraposition. So in raising pattern, the subject there may be separated from the existential verb it goes with by raising. So in certain sentences, we also pick there and bring it to the beginning of the sentence, right? And separate this there from the existential verb. For example, there verb plus to have or to be or to have, they are existential verbs, right? And they the place before this to is that of there. So we can have such a sentence: there seems to be many children with a reading book. So there is raised from this position after likely to the initial position of the subject and separated from its existential verb. So these are some of the aspects which tells us that raising that the noun phrase which is brought to the initial position in such a sentence cannot be filled with any lexical verb. It has to be a vacant, and that's why we have seen that we put a rounded bracket here, that this is the place from where we have picked up the noun phrase and brought it to the initial position of the sentence. If I talk such thing in terms of the pedagogical or prescriptive grammar, normally we say that the subject which is brought to the initial position is actually the subject of reference of the following infinitive, or it may be a following present participle or following past participle, right? And similarly, if it is an adjective, in then that case we say that adjective has a modifier, right? In that term we explain that the infinitive or present participle are actually modifying that adjective. So this is something about raising. We can understand that how we raise the status of the subject from the subordinate infinitive clause and bring it to the main clause and use it as a subject noun phrase.